Master, monastic, my fellow practitioners, good morning. It has been over 2 years since I last took this podium, and this time I'm tremendously humbled that my first assignment after returning to Maba, I was entrusted with a subject of such importance. Starting from this week, and through to the end of November, Maba is going to offer a series of talks that address two very important sutras. On Satipatthana and Anapanasati. My job here today is to offer a very general introduction of these two sutras in terms of their key points, general layout, and some precautions so as to pave your way, smooth your way for further learning in the following weeks. The job certainly is not that simple as it seems, but I'll do my best. So a quick, useful shortcut for you to be look at this very first slide. I have delineated 3 major points for you to understand Satipatthana and Anapanasati. First, it all hinges on Sati. I'll define and explain that later. Then, for Sati to work, it requires upatana, meaning taking action. Exactly how that works, I'll also explain later. Now, to cultivate Sati and to take action, to what end? Here is wisdom. And all of you probably have the right idea that wisdom is the key to your final salvation or emancipation or deliverance. Let me begin from the first explanation. To achieve the end of Nibbana, you have to start somewhere. That beginning would be to arouse mindfulness, and that's the meaning of Sati, lacking better terms. I'll explain that later. So as you can see, the title of these two sutras, one starts with Satipatthana. Those letters in red. The other ends with Anapanasati, both on Sati. Satipatthana literally means the 4 foundations of mindfulness. It would be worthwhile to note right here that for beginners, it means 4 foundations of mindfulness, meaning you can use the body, feeling, mind, and all phenomena as your mental object for meditation to establish the foundation of mindfulness. But for advanced learners, really, if you read into Satipatthana, the real meaning of it is the establishment of form mindfulness. It expects you to use that foundation to firmly establish the mindfulness. And even for those advanced learners who have achieved the first result, being the stream enterer, they still need to come back and practice the so-called 4th establishment of mindfulness. So this is not as simple as it seems. It all hinges on Sati. As I explained earlier, to arouse mindfulness is one very important step to acquire wisdom, wherein wisdom is the key to your final liberation. Now let's define Sati. Really, it means awareness. This particular awareness, let me use a simile so that you can comprehend it a little better. We have a room here. Room, by definition, has exits. Now, it is general idea that room has exits. That's comprehension, general understanding. But then, if you gradually investigate from your perspective, there are two exits. From my perspective, there is one exit, and then you combine the two, achieve a balanced view, knowing there are three exits of this room. Then that's clear comprehension. Still, that's not the key. Mindfulness or mindful comprehension would be pointing to either one of those three. Stay on it. Say, if I suggest you keep in mind there is one particular exit you have to use to escape for your life during emergency. You stay on that, and when something really bad happens, spring to your feet, rush to the door, run to safety without thinking. That's how mindfulness works for you. So mindfulness has that one particular function of pointing to a direction for you of your meditation, not just the object. So that's the kind of awareness we're talking about here. Then Upasana means placing near. You combine the two terms. Here, as you can see, according to the Pali commentary, where does the Satipatthana come from? It's a compound term. Okay? You combine these two terms, sati and upasana, meaning sati is standing by or sati is at hand. Now, under what circumstance would it be at hand? Obviously, by the practitioner. You have to make it readily at hand. Therefore, in that sense, it can be translated into presence of mindfulness. It requires action. How important is that idea? I cannot emphasize this more, so let me reiterate that again. For many practitioners, the ultimate goal of Buddhist practices is Nibbana. I wouldn't say all, because for others, their goal is not Nibbana. Probably a rebirth into a better place. That's also legitimate. But for those who are aiming at Nibbana, then the only way of reaching to that end would be through practicing the middle way, the so-called Eightfold Noble Path. Many of you are probably familiar with the term and the practice. In turn, the middle way, the Noble Eightfold Path, would not progress, would not mature, would not give you the intended result without the development and cultivation of sati. So that's how important it is. I say cannot, it doesn't mean that it will not happen forever. According to dependent origination, that everything has a cause and result. The more effort you put into it, the quicker you get your result. You do nothing, nothing happens. So it's a fair game. All right, so this is how important it is. So important that many people literally translated that Satipatthana is the only way to get Nibbana. It might be a somewhat mistranslation to say it is the only way. Actually, the early scripture indicated that Satipatthana is the one going way, meaning once you have treaded the path, it will lead to that destination without any failure. But it is not necessarily the only way. You could zigzag, took a different path, eventually get to that particular destination. But this is the direct one going way. Buddha first interpreted, reiterated, and taught the importance of sati for one particular purpose: for the practitioner to purify their mental afflictions. And this is not limited to human beings. It's actually intended for all beings. In theory, we still have other beings listen to the Dharma talk in this room. And what is the point of practicing that? So that these beings could be forever away and beyond from worry and sorrow, have a liberated mind. Therefore, the Satipatthana training would be to train your mind, to integrate your mind fully with your body. Undeniably, beings, let's use the example of human being. This particular existence is a combination of your mentality and materiality. Oftentimes we describe it as an integration of form and mind. That having said, it can be further delineated into an operational way. This is precisely the sutra is intending. So the layout is quite straightforward. According to the early scriptures, there are two stages to practice mindfulness or Satipatthana training. Number one, be able to differentiate mentality and materiality. Namely, the two ingredients that creates this being. So among the four possible subjects for your meditation, you have the body, you have the feeling, mind, and mind object. Now the body is the raw body, which is materiality, no doubt about it. You put that aside, then you have feelings, mind, and mind object, phenomena, which are all related to mind. Therefore, say for example, if you intend to start from training your mind to see the body as the body, really you need to put aside all your feelings, all your mental formations, and all your concepts and perception aside. Therefore, say, now this relates to direct practices. Say you are sitting here, you try to meditate, and then you say you are practicing the four foundations of mindfulness using the first mental object, the body, and yet you're describing, I feel this, I feel that. No, then you are actually practicing the second object, feeling. Okay, so the only way would be solidly, exclusively on the body. That having said, I'll explain that later, that you need to have a clear sense of what body really is. If you keep on doing this, eventually you will know that there are only four major elements that this body comprises: the earth, the wind, fire, water. When that happens, you have reached the second phase, second stage of mindfulness training, namely acquiring direct knowledge of phenomena. Starting from this body, it's all about the rising and ceasing of these four elements, nothing else. At that moment, you have acquired wisdom. So then, let's use the mindfulness of the body as a starting point. You have to abide purely and strictly on the body per se. Not your feeling, not your emotion. Toss them aside. So what do you do then? First, try to be a little bit more careful. This body actually can further divide it into the raw part, the coarse part, and the more minute, subtle part. As you can see here, first is this tangible body, okay, top to toe. You can sense the profile of it. Then you have the fine materiality, which is just breath. What's the point of making this distinction? When you're living your daily life, you're constantly in motion. It would be literally impossible to dwell on the subtle part of your form, meaning the breath. Your mind would not be so concentrated. Therefore, when you are in motion, you can only focusing on the raw part of this body. Okay? Dwell on that general profile. Stay on it. When you are not in motion, sitting here still, then you can shift your focus onto your subtle part of form, meaning the breath. This is where Anapanasati comes into play. So Anapanasati is one particular way of practicing Satipatthana. According to recent commentary, one particular monk I'm referring to, Ananayo, and I really agree with what he said. He said that Anapanasati is one particular mental object wherein the four foundations of mindfulness converged into one training. You can relate the breath to the body, relate the breath to your feeling, also to your mind and all kinds of concepts, and use them for your training. Right, so that's the general layout. Knowing the body, for example, okay, is the starting point, and it is recommended this way. Why? This is raw, tangible. Feeling then requires more concentrated, more tuned up mind to notice. And then mind, where does mind come from? It's consciousness making contact with an object. That's when the mind arises. So you have to be aware the contact that was being made. Grasp the moment to know your mind. That's even more minute, subtle. And being able to do that, you'll be able to see all phenomena as such as they really are. In the sutra, whenever it is mentioned, to see things as they really are usually means see them as impermanent, without entity, non-self. That's what things really are. So the recommended phases, if you will, is first, you see the body as the body. Then feelings, the mind, and the ultimate truth. Exactly, technically, how would that go on? I will leave it to my well-informed colleagues in the following weeks, and the master himself will give you all the technical instructions. Suffice to say this much, because this is a general introduction. So my point here is that the whole training is about cultivating a different attitude of seeing yourself. What particular object you choose is of less significance. There are certainly plenty of other ways of training your mind. I'll leave that to other occasions. Let's not deal with it right now. Still, after, say, you have cultivated a right attitude, that is the so-called right view, you have to start doing it. So choosing the object is still important. The object, let me give you a very useful general guiding principle. That Satipatthana has to do with attending to whatever situation at hand with a balanced attitude. So as long as that particular object of your choice can give you that kind of mindset, namely attending to whatever situation at hand, then it is legitimate. Okay? For you, this is of most importance. Second reason that you have to start choosing an object to cultivate mindfulness is that, again, I'm citing the commentary here, that mindfulness is a form of wholesome mental formation. Remember, from the very beginning, you have to ask yourself, what is your goal of taking the practice? And I am assuming here the ultimate goal for all of you would be Nibbana. So then, toward that goal, you're taking action. Creating mindfulness is your first objective. That mindfulness, therefore, is wholesome. Keep in mind, consciousness rises and ceases instantly. So as you keep on doing this, there is no space whatsoever to unwholesome formation to come up. So really, if you want to live a purified, peaceful, purely wholesome life, then making mindfulness to be a continual presence in your life would be the key. There is another perspective, although there's some different opinion on this. It is said by some theorists that the presence of wholesome, mindful mental formation necessarily preclude the presence of unwholesome mental formation. Exactly how would that work would be quite technical, and I'll leave that again to the master and to my well-informed colleagues in the following weeks. I have just mentioned that we are assuming your particular mindfulness is wholesome because it's based on a wholesome beginning. If it's not this way, then it is not wholesome, obviously. So the beginning point for you is a right understanding. Right understanding for mindfulness training would be two, stimulating mental balance. Again, let's use the simile of this room. Certainly there are exits for this room, but if you keep on focusing singularly, say right in front of you, those on these two sides will not see exit. Those of you will see one here, those of you will see one there. For me, it's there. What bad could this do? Well, unfortunately, in Buddhism, it could lead you gradually, but really irreversibly onto a different path, oftentimes unintended, oftentimes unwholesome. So the right way would be clearly understanding all the exits. Like I said earlier, comprehension is knowing this room has exits. Mindful comprehension would be knowing there are three and knowing which one you are choosing. One note would be worthwhile here. In the Theravada tradition, they rarely, if ever, use the term mindfulness singularly. It always comes in compound term. It would be mindful comprehension or mindful wisdom, always with mindfulness. Okay, so they go hand in hand. So you need that mental balance. To acquire that mental balance, it requires very constant training. And I hate to say that because possibly some of you has that idea. Still, I want to say it. If your idea of mindfulness training is sitting there and relaxing, so be it. You are relaxing. But don't describe yourself as doing meditation, because you're not. Meditation is training, rigorous training. Train your mind to strike a new balance, and it takes constant effort. So I would agree the term of relax to describe meditation only in the sense that you are able to settle your mind, that it doesn't cling to anything, and you stay alert. That kind of relaxation, I would agree. Okay, that's the kind of meditation we're talking about here. So it must be accompanied by clear comprehension of what is being held present in the hand. Is it your body, or is it one particular hair, one particular organ inside, or is it a concept? Just know it, stay on it. The resulted balanced attitude will not be shaken by desires. Again, a note is required here. Some people also get the wrong idea that, look, it's unshaken, right? Not moving. So I'm going to try myself sitting like a stone. Now let me ask you, can a stone be enlightened? No. Can a stone become a Buddha? No. Then what's the point of training yourself into a stone-like statue? So that's not the point of meditation. Unshaken here means your mind is so determined, so peaceful, refrain from all distraction. Nothing can distract it. In that sense, it's unshaken. So it's mental, not physical. It's important to keep this in mind. Once you have achieved that kind of unshaken peacefulness, it is for sure that worldly worries, dejection would have little effect on you. You would have achieved the first stage of fruit, being the stream enter, ready to cultivate your wisdom. Still, from the beginning, cultivating your mindfulness to the end of Nibbana, which is, in our perspective, quite remote. It may even not happening in this life. You probably would want to ask, well, in between, do I get anything? Am I practicing for nothing? No, you still get something. At least one midway goal would be you are achieving samadhi. If you want to describe as mental absorption or jhana, it's the same thing. Okay? All type of so-called meditation, if we use the early scripture in Pali term, is to practice the so-called kammatthana dhamma. Okay? Your mind is what creates karma. Therefore, where your mind rests upon is where karma is being created. Therefore, choosing your mind object would be practicing that particular way of either creating wholesome or unwholesome karma. That's what all meditation techniques is about. What do we do this for? The early scripture has one particular way of describing our mind. It says that our eye, nose, the ear, the mouth, these are literally windows. If you don't shut them off, if you don't close them, your mind, the consciousness, will quickly flow out, attached to things. What things? Things that you are craving about. Craving, again, is the very origin of your rebirth. So we need to control that. First, you reduce the flow. Gradually, you stop the flow. Eventually, you activate, unrooted the window, that the window doesn't even exist. So controlling that outgoing exuberance or incoming exuberance, there are different opinions on this. It seems that controlling the incoming exuberance would match better for our purposes here. Be that as it may, controlling that exuberance so that it stays right on yourself. The only object you need to deal with is this body and mind. Okay, that's the starting point. Once you're able to do that, you should be able to achieve the first jhana. The mind, one precaution for you. What I have just described can be described as taking medicine to deal with a sick mind. I hate to use that word, make you feel bad. Oh, I have a sick mind. Not in that sense that it's abnormal. Only in the sense that the mind really doesn't know what it's capable of because it's been distracted constantly that it doesn't develop its full potential. And if you take some medicine, the medicine here is mindfulness training. You'll be able to heal itself and develop fully. The mind would naturally reject to take that medicine. So you have to figure out a way to convince yourself, to cajole yourself, to urge yourself, to force yourself to do that. That is beyond my control. I can only give you the suggestion. Okay. You may start to think, what if I'm powerless? What if I'm helpless? I don't know what to do. I don't have the power. Well, aren't we all? Luckily, we're not alone. You have the sutra, you have the good companion. This is one of the focal points why you have to have good companion when engaging yourself in practices. You have the so-called general Sangha community in the sense that the holy Sangha from the early beginning to the current time that they are practicing the Buddha's teaching. You have all these to support your training. So for you, one simple way would be first, accept and practice the precepts. Notice I say precept, okay, 5 very simple precepts of them. Gradually, when your mind is better trained, when it is more settled, then we have the so-called Vinaya. Numerous, very detailed regulatory guidelines and rules for you to stop even minute faults. Mentally, that is. Keep in mind, it takes time. Okay, for you right now, it's the precept. Refrain from killing, refrain from taking things not given to you, not saying harsh words to others, not lying, things like that. Do not take intoxicants. What benefits would you get? These would protect your mind from outer invasions. So many people have the wrong idea the Buddhist precepts and those rules in the Vinayas so detailed, so suffocating that they don't want to be a Buddhist. Unfortunately, that's a misconception. Precepts was never intended to inhibit you from doing things. Actually, it's intended to protect yourself. Once you are able to protect yourself, then your mind is in a better shape to cultivate mindfulness. Once mindfulness is in presence, then you are in much better position to achieve jhana, or mental absorption. That opens the door to the cultivation and development of wisdom. They are linked one by one. Missing one, even though it doesn't mean you will not reach the end eventually, it will certainly slow you down considerably. So Sila, set limit on your mental exuberance. Practice that, it would certainly benefit yourself. Because of that also, because mentally you have changed, you are transformed. Therefore, bodily, verbally, you will present a different self-image. People will sense that. Good companions, good friends will start gather around you. That's also an affiliated benefits of practicing Sila. With the establishment of precepts, you're practicing it. was the starting of cultivating mindfulness, knowing what sati is. Now you are ready to choose a mental object. I will quickly go through this because my point is on the third object only. Point 1 and 2 is simply just to show you that there are more than one legitimate object for you to choose from. So even for this body, you may not choose to focusing on your breath. Your skin, your nail, your bone, your internal organ, even your urine, okay, your blood can all be a legitimate object. There are technical instructions on all those things, which is not covered today. You can also contemplate on Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha that gives you protection, offers you refuge. Again, it is not covered today, but they are legitimate. The most common and easier to access way would be focusing on your breath, awareness of breathing in and out. Again, this awareness would be mindful awareness or mindful comprehension. First comprehension is that you are breathing, certainly, because you are alive, right? And then think deeper. What do you mean by I am breathing? Well, you start to describe. You have that in and out things, airflow. Now you're talking. That would be the direction. Then further down, what do you mean by in and out? Well, you can notice the length of that inflow and outflow is different. Now that's really mindfulness. Okay, more technical details. Again, I'll leave it to my colleague in the following weeks and to the master. If you have questions, you're welcome to ask them directly. So, Anapanasati Bhavana would be developing the awareness of breathing. Use the breath as the objective support of your mind. This consists in knowing, comprehension, and mindfulness. Okay, mindfulness comprehension. Combine the two of in and out breathing. What would it achieve? I will explain that in the next slide. Here, what I want to emphasize is that your breath is not the only choice you have. All four Satipatthana can be put into practice with this single object. I have mentioned that earlier. If you want a reference, here it is, Ananayo in his 2013 publication. Talking about Satipatthana. He specifically mentioned that this is one particular object that all four foundations of mindfulness training can converge. What would you get? Assuming we are now practicing Anapanasati. If you do it correctly, diligently, you will certainly feel that citta. Literal translation would be the mind. But this is not a general mind, a thinking mind. No. Citta is a particular state of mind that only after deep mental absorption or something like jhana would give rise to. If you're interested in the definition, you can look it up. The citta would become bright, cool, calm. In particular, you would feel that general sense of happy, not linking to any worldly things. You think about your mother, maybe you feel happy. You think about your little daughter, which is lovely, you feel happy. Not that kind of happy, but simply that your mind feel it's bright, cool, calm, nothing distracted, that kind of happy. And to give you an extra information, how do you judge your own level of meditation? What have you achieved? That happy feeling would be one particular measurement for you to use. Okay? So there will be no connection with any disturbing influence. This is the expected and almost assured result of Anapanasati training. It doesn't happen overnight, again. The breath gives up its relationship to oneself. When that happens, there is no longer the distinction between form and mind. You no longer notice the difference between materiality and mentality. They become one and all. At that moment, I guarantee you, you would have developed a very different kind of wisdom that you can see things directly as they are without thinking about it. Exactly how that feels, you need to practice that. Like, I'm not holding back information so that I can lure you back to listen to my talk. No, that's not the point. Really say, if I have a glass of water here, no matter how I describe it, it's so sweet, so clean, so cool, you would never realize how it really tastes. You have to drink it. Now I know. Okay? That's the whole point of meditation. So with concentration being developed and in presence, wisdom manifests. In some other occasions, wisdom doesn't just manifest itself with the removal of affliction. Certain form of wisdom need to be cultivated purposely. Okay, purposefully. You have to do that intentionally. Like, all right, I'm gonna sit for 2 hours, first cultivating my absorption, and upon achieving that kind of absorption, I'm going to cultivate a certain kind of wisdom. Having that idea and start developing it, so it doesn't just manifest. Detail, we might have other opportunity to deal with that. Rest assured that some wisdom that once you were able to stop those distractions from troubling you, you will sense that wisdom. No matter what kind of wisdom, say those that would happen automatically and those need to be cultivated intentionally, both would benefit from deep absorption or really in-depth mindfulness training. That's for sure. So let me quickly summarize the whole point of mindfulness training, including Satipatthana and Anapanasati. It is trying to lay the foundation for you to live a different life. What life? If you look at this title, that particular sentence does not come easily. If I ask you right now, describe your ideal Buddhist life to me, what would you describe it? In my opinion, and this has been affirmed by quite a number of other people, some masters, is that we all want all Buddhists to live an unbounded and unselfish life. Unbounded in the first instance, if you were able to observe your precept, achieving jhana, your mind become unbounded. That's not quite difficult. But then, do you only minding your business, doing that? That would be an incomplete Buddhist. How would you use that particular refreshed or reshaped self to benefit other people? to live an unselfish life, that would complete the training. And it starts from either Satipatthana or Anapanasati training. All right, so I have laid out the general idea of what these two sutras are intending. I have also quickly summarized that what you should be also doing. The following slides will be some precaution for you, some important points that practitioners, even well-seasoned practitioners, oftentimes neglect. Number one is that meditation is rigorous investigation. You might have read elsewhere that meditation is investigation. Correct, but not good enough. I must emphasize rigorous, for reason that I have just mentioned earlier, that some people have the wrong notion that meditation is I can sit back, relax, doing nothing. If you're doing that, sure, you're resting. There's nothing wrong with it, but that's not meditation. You investigate training your mind. First, you investigate where is your mind. Then, since you are now taking a different posture, you're not living your daily life, you're sitting right now. What's the whole point of doing this? Okay, so you start to think, I'm training my mind. Using what? To what end? Okay, you want to cultivate your mindfulness? Suppose you have achieved clear mindful comprehension. How do you guard it? How do you preserve it? How do you develop it? All those would have technical instruction from the master and all my fellow teachers. Okay, but those questions are very crucial for you to think about in the beginning. It's included in the rigorous investigation. In Buddhism, very quickly, that so-called rigorous investigation can be categorized into two types of meditation. One is samatha, the other is vipassana. Samatha pretty much is trying to achieve jhana, while insight is to cultivate your wisdom on the basis of that achieved jhana. The foundation would be focusing on the immediate moment. I guess the computer is out of power. I guess that's also an indication I should quickly wrap up my talk. Okay, so doesn't matter, that's the beginning. The second point that my computer refused to reveal is that you need to erase doubt. Not in the sense that doubting whether Buddhism is the right thing to think about, no. That when you are practicing one particular exercise, say, today I'm going to practice Anapanasati, therefore my focus is breath. Then leave no doubt at all that this is the object that will work. Stop thinking about what if I also practice compassion or altruistic joy. What if I try to also, from time to time, introduce the body so that my mind will not feel bored? No, those kind of doubts need to be put aside, subdued if you must. When practicing, leave no doubt. Eventually, it would also conceptually leave you no doubt that this is how it actually works. Some of you might have received scientific training. Say you are doing a statistical model fitting. And how do you know that it is A causes B? You can only be sure that it is only A causes B when you can leave out all the other influencing factors. And now we can be sure. So this is the point of why you need to erase doubt. All right, so that would be a very brief introduction to Satipatthana and Anapanasati. The reason, again, that we arranged a whole series of talk is that it would not do justice to such a profound topic in one session. Whatever blanks I have left today, hopefully, will be filled by my fellow colleagues, fellow teachers, and the Master himself. Thank you for being with me today.